138 is on it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Guys. I'm your host.
Ladies and gentlemen, from coast to coast and around the world, you're listening to the Sport Cat Show.
That's right. You got the one, the only Sport Cat, often duplicated, never replicated. Well, let's see. We got a great show lined up tonight, so let's not waste a whole lot of time here. I want to thank Guyz Radio at guyzradio.com for allowing us on. And, of course, we want to thank our friends at WDJY and WRFN, Radio Free Nashville. Let's see who I got hiding backstage here. I got the one and only Amanda. You're looking forward to this one. I know you are.
I am, yes.
Well, you know what? Let's just bring him on out here and introduce him. Greg, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Greg. Glad to have you here.
Thanks. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, you know, I don't know why I haven't had you on sooner.
You didn't ask.
I guess that's true. Didn't think about it. So inside trader secret, we belong to some of the same groups, and he's hung out in the woods with me. So he hasn't seen me naked though. So
Not yet.
Not yet.
I keep it on him.
Keeping my hopes up, right?
Ooh. You just think see the Sasquatch is rare. Ooh.
Which would be more scary, Glenn?
Well, you know, Bobby's already put me out on the air snoring in my tent, so that was really nice of him. So what friends are for, right?
Well, really though, Glenn, I don't think you want to make the Sasquatches feel all inadequate or anything. So keep your clothes on.
Yeah, I'll try really hard. I'm not the next expedition we go on, I will be out of the tent cot, so there's less likelihood of that happening. So, because in the tent cot, I don't know if I've ever told you, Amanda, but basically it's a cot with a tent over it, and you have to do everything inside of it, and it's like wrestling in a tater sack or something. So sometimes you might just jump out of there and put your clothes on when you think nobody's looking.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that sounds very awkward to try to get dressed in.
Hey, I'm an old dude though. I mean, I don't rough it anymore. You know, when I go out with the tent, got to have a blow up air mattress and a heater if it's cold outside. I'm not gonna rough it anymore. I'm gonna be comfortable if I go out.
Yes.
I'm joining you now. I've already got the heater. I've got tanks. So I've got a cot. So with a nice little cushy thing that goes on top of it. So
I like the cushy things.
Yeah. So I'm over those days. Well, I won't say I'm over them, but for a quick weekend thing, I might still take the tent cot during the summer. During the winter, it is miserable. So,
well, I'll tell you, during the summer, I don't go anymore. There's too many ticks and chiggers and snakes and bugs and skeeters and everything else that just annoys the hell out of you. So I just don't go.
Yes, I don't blame you there.
The only nice thing about the tent cot in the winter is once you're in there, it gets pretty warm pretty quick. So
that's good.
Yeah, once you're in there, but it's getting in there that sucks.
There's no use to be uncomfortable, if you can get the things to make it comfortable.
One of my, and Greg, I don't think you've heard this story, but one of my first experiences with the tent cot, we were up in Northeast Georgia in the mountains, and I was with a different group, and it was so windy. It's the kind of wind you can hear coming over the mountains like waves, and it was cold and miserable, and I brought the wrong sleeping bag.
Oh,
I bought
no.
a summer bag. So I went to my Jeep and I literally took all my clothes, everything that would keep me warm, and I threw it in the tent cot. Like crawled in it like Oscar the Grouch. And we put a tarp over the tent cot because the wind, was blowing through.
Hmm.
And in the middle of the night, I woke up and I was freezing to death, but I was buried in there and I felt the wind pulling my tent cot. Like, what the hell? Is it that strong? And so I didn't think anything about it. I went back to sleep. The next morning, I got up and told around a campfire I was warming up. I said, damn, that wind was so bad. It was pulling my tent cot. And they're like, dude, your tent wasn't tied to the tarp. I was like, okay, I know none of you people were out here doing that. We went over there and looked, and sure enough, there's drag marks where I had been drugged like 2.5, 3 feet. Like, yeah.
Oh my gosh! So something tried to take the meat out of the taco.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
I didn't have any chocolate in there, so yeah, that was a realization that there is something out here in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Greg, where are you from?
I am from just north of Birmingham, Alabama. It's a little small town called Warrior.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very rural here, so it's almost squatchy, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And there actually have been a few sightings of the Alabama white fang in this area. And I do have some friends who have had some encounters close to me, but I wouldn't say that they're very common here. But yep, I'm out in the rural areas now.
well,
Nice.
And go ahead.
What was your one big event that got you into squatching?
Oh God. Well, the thing that got me into the paranormal in general is when I was a kid, I had a UFO experience, and it was really a traumatic an experience for me, because it was my 2 older brothers, 2 older cousins, and myself, and we were on a road going down to my grandmother's, and this big giant light just shines on us, just wah. You couldn't see past the edge of the light. It was so bright. Tried to look up, and you couldn't see anything. But one of the things I do remember about this light is that looking down at my hands, you could feel the light. It was like static electricity. Yeah, I mean, you could actually feel it. And I remember thinking, this is the weirdest thing in the world. And then my next memory of that was on my grandmother's covered porch. And I remember thinking to myself, how's the light coming through the porch? Because it's covered, right? And the light's coming from above. But anyway, I digress. And then I remember looking out, and the light lifted up. It didn't turn off. It lifted up, just like that. I didn't see the craft. My oldest brother did. He said it was like a big giant triangle. I had he saw it for just a second or so, and then poof, off it went. So I remember being terrified about that. But later on, I've always had that memory like in my mind. I would never talk about it, but it was always like in the back of my mind. And that really, since then, I guess that event sort of captivated my attention to the paranormal and things that just are strange. Then I grew up watching In Search of with Leonard Nimoy and all these other little shows about Bigfoot, and the $6 Million Man Bigfoot episode was one of my favorites. So I've always had a fascination with the paranormal in general. And it was one day I just got tired of sitting on the sidelines and tired of hunting and fishing, doing the same old, same old. So I decided to get up off the couch and go hunt some monsters. And lo and behold, one thing led to another. Because of my, I'm a traffic engineer by trade, and what I would do on my job is investigate crashes and solve the mystery of what caused the crash. And You have to go out, collect data, document things, and then you go with whatever the evidence says it actually is, and sometimes you have to look beyond just the crash itself and actually see the true cause, which may at first glance looks like it's over here, but in reality it's way down the road. So you have to be trained to look for subtleties in the evidence. So I just took those skills into hunting Bigfoot, and wada bam, one thing leads to another, and here I am.
That's amazing.
Well, I can tell you, when I first started to try to do a documentary, I was like, I'm an engineer. How hard can it be, right? Naively. So on one of our first outings, our very first outing, after I called University of Alabama, Birmingham, and kind of surrounded myself with other people who knew a little bit more about film, which is not hard. A chipmunk would know more about filmmaking than me. So I got together with this other guy. His name's Brent, and we went out just scouting an area in Bankhead National Forest in Alabama, and lo and behold, we were out about 45 minutes, and we came across a footprint trackway. And they were fantastic too. They came down this little knoll and to the edge of a pond, and went around the edge of the pond, back up a knoll and into the woods. We're like, cool, there's nothing to this. I'm gonna solve this mystery real quick, right? I mean, I thought we were just gonna just solve this thing. It was nothing to it, right? Until I started going back and viewing the footage of what I had taken, and I'm like, that don't look too good. You have no camera presence whatsoever. We're not going to use that. So we didn't use that footage of it was actually some fantastic evidence. It really was. We found 2 trackways, a handprint that was on a 4x4 post where held a bat house at the top of it, where the forestry department put there for bats. So we thought they was just reaching up in that bat house and grabbing the bats out of it. We found some fabulous evidence, and we couldn't use any of it because it's terrible. Yeah. So thanks to YouTube, we learned a little bit more about camera presence and how to make a story out of things and how to make it interesting. Instead of just the dry presentation like I'm talking to a bunch of engineers. So.
My son's going to college right now to become an engineer.
Oh, bless your heart. Bless his heart. Yeah, bless his heart.
Gosh. He's already had a big cut up the side of his face and above his eye. Luckily, he had goggles on.
Uh-oh. I can say, bless his heart.
His nickname is now 0 days.
0 days. Okay.
Yeah, because he has not made it a single day without getting hurt, tripping. Today he was bitten by a brown recluse at marching band practice.
Oh my God.
And as soon as he told me, I said 0 days.
Safety third.
That's right. Safety third. Yeah. That's my favorite phrase. Safety third.
Oh goodness.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So that's cool.
Yeah. So that's what got me into it. I've always had a little bit of a curiosity into it. In the early days was a giant learning curve, but we always seem to stumble across some good evidence. I don't think we're good. I think we're just lucky. We just bumble along and boof, there's the evidence. Hey, there it is.
Yeah.
So I don't attribute it to skill. I just attribute it to luck. And, we turned out The Legend of the Downy Booger, which was our first film. And I was a little bit apprehensive about it because, I'm my own worst critic, but it has been very well received. And we're coming up on 2 million views on it now, which I'm grateful for. And that's led to us doing another film. It's called Cryptic Expeditions, The Land Between the Lakes.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's down toward where my family lives.
Yeah. So
they're in Hopkinsville.
So this film is chock full of evidence. It kind of starts out with us going back out to where we started in Bankhead, and we have some fantastic evidence that we shot right there on film. And it goes over to we follow another group, the ASOG group, and we are investigating the meadow. So the meadow project. So we do a short bit there, and then we migrate over into the Land Between the Lakes, where we have the encounter that is on video. So it is absolutely fantastic, and there's stuff all the way through it. So
nice.
I am really anxious to get this to see the whole film myself.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that.
I've been blessed to be a part of the Meadow Project, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. So.
Nice.
Yeah. I've already started shooting for my third film, which is now yet untitled, but it's going to center around missing peoples, and it's going to be a little bit different than the other booger films that I've made, where we're intentionally going out looking for boogers. In this instance, we're going out and searching for essentially missing people and the cause of some of these missing peoples. So, and we're going to take various aspects to attempting to solve some of these mysteries.
Oh, nice. We have a girl who's been missing here in Kentucky for a really long time, and they get a lead here and there, and the FBI goes out and they'll dig in a creek they've never found her body. It's been years now.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm not going to tell the cases that we're going to center on. It's a bit early for that. I will say this though. I was actually filming for this third film over the weekend, and we were traveling to another place that we were going to investigate. And lo and behold, on our way, we're in the middle of the North Georgia woods, and on our way, we come across a Bigfoot that's actually crossing the road in front of us.
Oh gosh!
It's fabulous. I mean, it looks like a black bear at first because it's on all fours, but it's just so large. I mean, it's gargantuan, right? I'm like, what the F is that? And I'm sitting there looking at it, and the driver, he had just turned his head over to look at me, right, as we were talking, and he was driving us to this location. So me and my crewmate were both like, wow, what's that? Wow, look at that. It's huge. And he's like, what, where? And he couldn't get his eyes on it in time. And it actually just crawled up this embankment. It was greater than 45 degrees. It was probably 70 degrees. It was almost straight up. And it went up that embankment like nothing.
Oh,
just
my God.
Zip. And, at first I'm like, are my eyes playing tricks on me? Because instead of like the bear kind of going up, with his arms, his arms was out like this, crawling up it. It was like, is my eyes playing tricks on me or anything? So we stop and, investigate, and lo and behold, it left tracks. It was a 17.5-inch track that it left.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So it was a big boy. Yeah. So we get nice photos and measurements of the track and all. So that event will be in the third film, but most of the time I would have been filming as we're going down the road, but I had a new guy that was with me, and I just failed to tell him. So it's my fault. It really is. Everybody else that would have been with me in the past would have known, while we're driving to keep the camera on, because that's when you see stuff. It really is. You see a lot of stuff doing that. And if not, it's an interesting B-roll for the film. So,
Right. Do you have very many women who go out and hunt with you?
I do try to keep females in our films and go out with them. So yes, long story short, yes. In the making of the Downy Booger, there was Janice Nolan. She was an integral part of our first film, and she's been going to conferences with us. And a lot of times we would go out squatching and just not even be filming. We just go out for fun. And she would go out with us. She had since moved to Tennessee and not really in a small group with me to be able to go out quite as often. But in this, where I went over this weekend, there were 1, 2, 3, 4 females that was with us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we do really try to keep women, in our loop, because one of the messages that I want to send out is that, women can do this just as easy as men can. As a matter of fact, they may actually have better luck at it, So there's no gender limitation on doing this, not at all.
I was just wondering if I was the only crazy woman willing to go out and do something like that.
No, there are other crazy ones just like you. Yeah.
Well, it's also like the scents. They could pick up on scents and different scents. Like I would have a different scent than a man, so I thought about that as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sure you smell better than a lot of the men out there. I'm sure you do. I can just see Bigfoot now. Like, bad smell, man. Good smell, woman.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
Some truth to that. So
yeah, there's a lot of truth.
We've been in the woods for a couple of days. Yeah, we don't smell very good.
There's a lot of truth to that. And some of the females that I'm going to have in this film, this third film coming up, is I'm going to have Jessica Jones. She'll be joining me. There will be this young lady named Tilly. She's going to be joining us. There will be the other 4 ladies that was with us over the weekend, and Miss Stillwell will be joining us when we go to Tennessee for the final shoot. So, nice. I try to keep a good balance of women in there because, frankly, because like I say, I want women to think that they can come out and do this too. It's not just a man thing. It's just not just a man thing.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Chris.
I agree with you, Chris.
Greg's been in the woods with me. He knows. So.
I agree.
Oh, what was the very first encounter you had besides, like up close and personal, besides for one where you just followed the tracks?
With the Bigfoots?
Yes.
Okay. The first one where I know it, or where it was there and I didn't know it till later, because there's different types.
Oh, that's true, I guess. Let's go with which one scared you the most. How about that?
Let's do this one. Okay. During the making of Booger, I was, for lack of a better word, poor, and I didn't have enough money to go out and buy some of this equipment, so I had to make my own equipment, like make my own night vision and made my own this and that. And so, Booger took a long time to make, and toward the end there was getting a little bit run down because we wasn't having any luck with night vision, getting anything on night vision. So these orbs started to appear to us as we were starting to go up Bigfooting. And this is, they really rocked my world because I had never heard of or anything about an orb until I saw one. I was like, what's that? I was like, is it somebody else out here? I mean, they're so bright, they look like flashlights, right? And at first I thought I was just seeing things, and then I had to come to terms with what I was seeing, and then I actually eventually accepted what I was seeing, that it was actually real. And once I started doing that, we started seeing the orbs a lot more often. As a matter of fact, we saw them very often during the making of Booger. So I was like, hey, let's go rent us a real high-end camera, one that can virtually see in the dark, and we'll go out and film some of these orbs, right? So we go do that, and sure enough, right on cue, some of these orbs come, and we're having a pretty good night, we think. Getting some things on thermal, where this one thing comes crawling down a hill, and it gets to a log and pushes up, and when it goes back down, it just disappears off of thermal. I'm like, oh, how does it do that? But anyway, so we're sitting there filming this orb toward the end of the night. And Janice eventually says she saw something run down the trail, something tall and dark run down the trail. And, at the time I was like, okay, Janice, you're seeing things. So we go back, and I didn't hear anything. We didn't see anything other than the orbs. Okay. So in post-production, we catch this thing crawling between us and the orb. Have you ever heard of the spider crawl that Bigfoots do? Okay, it's doing this spider crawl. You could, when you blow it up and enhance it some, you can actually see the arms and the legs and the hands, and the head stays right there in the middle, and these big broad shoulders. And this thing was very, very close to us. And, I didn't know it was there. Nobody knew it was there. But the camera caught it. The camera tries to focus on this thing, but it's really, really dark out. But it, eventually gives up and starts just focusing on the orb. So that, even though I didn't know it was there, later after we figured out what it was, then it became real freaky and kind of scary, because these things can sneak up on you and you not know it. We didn't know it was there, right? Not at all. So we've had a couple of encounters that was sort of like that. I've seen some through FLIR, where we were in North Georgia and came across this little knoll, and there was this group of Girl Scouts that was camping sort of close to where we were. And we thought, this is a good opportunity to see how curious these things could be. So, we went over this real small hill and heard something coming up the hill. Anyway, so a lady that was with us had a FLIR out, so she popped the FLIR on the subject, right? And we get a hot signature, and at first I think it's just a rock. So, but we all stay still because there's a bunch of bear up there. We're like, oh, maybe it's a bear. We're gonna stay still. And after a few minutes, the subject starts doing this. It starts kind of rocking back and forth, and like, ooh, rocks don't rock, right? So we're like, hey, keep the thermal on this, right? This is a golden opportunity, and I'd like to know if it starts charging us. So and it wasn't too long before objects started being thrown in our general direction from off to the side, right? And we're like, hey, keep the FLIR on it. That's just a distraction. As soon as you take that, but the objects kept getting bigger and bigger and eventually got to log size. I mean, real huge log size. And when the big log came through, it scared Angela to death. So she did the FLIR over there to make sure it wasn't a bear charging, and then right back. It was that quick and was gone. But before the log was thrown, and this was seconds before, it stood up, and we all kind of gasped all at one time, like, and when it stood up, you could see the arms, the fingers, the face, you could see everything. And it was on FLIR. and you could see everything on this thing. And then the log was thrown, and then she did this, and then right back, and it was gone.
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 Salty is asking, what is a FLIR?
From forward-looking infrared camera is what it stands for. A FLIR is a thermal camera. It sees heat. It doesn't necessarily see the image itself. It sees heat. Okay, so that's what a FLIR is, a thermal camera. Now, the most intense encounter I've ever had was at the Land Between the Lakes. This is a long tale. So Adam Davies is in the Land Between the Lakes with us. So Adam Davies and myself, we went out scouting around the day we got to the LBL. And we're thinking, this place is peaceful. There's nothing here. We're looking around. We see, a few deer, a couple of lesbians, and some squirrels. And that's all we saw. We're like, there's going to be nothing else, right? So anyway, we're going to keep an open mind. We keep it giving it a chance, right? So Martin Groves is there with us. Martin Groves and Barton Nunley. So Martin Groves suggested we go to this one particular location. And okay, we keep it an open mind. And keep in mind that we're there to film. And as soon as we get there, we're like unloading all of our film gear and getting everything ready. And as I'm doing all this, I hear a kind of sound. I thought it was strange, but I sort of just kind of put it to the back of my mind and then did it again, right? And about the time I said that, I said, "Hey, did y'all hear that?" And about that time, it did it again, but it was real close this time. And my crewmate Brent he goes berserk. I mean, he has not just a panic attack; he's in a terror attack at this point. He's like, "Oh my God, we gotta go! We gotta go!" He's like running around like Mario. And I'm like, "Hold on, dude!" And I grab him by the back of the coat, saying, "Brent, you're okay. We're here with you. No, this is why we're here." And like, no, we gotta go. We gotta go. I'm like, "No, dude, we're okay." And this whole time while he's doing that, it's growling. And I can now in his defense, I will say I understand it, because as it got close and it started to growl, you could feel it. I mean, you could literally feel these growls like, they would vibrate your internal organs. And so, I really do understand it. And then I remember, hey, I got a camera. So I pull out reach over and get a camera. So with him, one hand, I've literally got Brent. In another hand, I'm trying to operate a camera in the pitch black. And then I look up over the truck and I see the Bigfoot. And it's standing right in front of the truck. And I see from bust up, and it's just standing there, just looking at us. And I'm like, and I froze. I'm like, oh, there it is,
Mm-hmm.
Now I've seen a lot of crazy things. And, seen ghosts, seen orbs out the yin yang, heard all kinds of weird stuff, had crap thrown at us, have my voice mimicked, had experienced missing time. It's a lot of weird stuff, but nothing really prepared me to see this with my own eyes, right? Standing there that close to us. And eventually, look down and open up the camera and get it going. And then the display comes on, right? And it kills my night vision. And then I'm just like kind of shooting in the dark. But it's on then. I'm recording. I'm going. And this thing is not intimidated by us one iota. There's 4 good-sized men here. And it's like, I'm not scared of you. And Adam Davies his military training kicks in. And, he kind of corrals us up into a group, and we're going to push this thing back, right? In other words, we didn't want to seem intimidated by it, so it would initiate some sort of chase instinct, in a wild animal, if they're wild animals. So we got together and we're starting to try and push this thing back into the woods. And every time we take a step forward, it growls. Just, it's kind of a huff growl. Or I can't imitate how it does it, but yeah, but in this, we're almost like in a tug of war here, and we try to take some steps forward, and it growls, and we kind of step back a little bit and then move forward. We play this for like 20-25 minutes, and finally we get it pushed back off into the woods, and eventually its eyes starts glowing, and we catch that on camera. It's like, got its eyes glowing, and around that time, we get some more rocks being thrown from our left, and inform everybody. And it's the funniest thing. Adam kind of turns around and says, "Oh my God, they're flanking us," in his British accent. Oh my God, they're flanking us. And, and that's what they were doing. They were flanking us. So there was more than one there. And, this encounter lasts 25 minutes or so. And even though all of our batteries were fully charged when we got there, we got that much out of the cameras, and then they died. And, we thought the encounter was over then, right? And everybody was sort of huddled back at the back of the truck. And I go like, it was in front of the truck. Maybe there's some prints. So I walk up to the front of the truck, try to find some prints. There's a lot of gravel on the road, right? So didn't really find any prints. So I like to push the envelope sometimes and see what kind of flies I can catch with the honey. So I go raw, just real loud, I do a growl, and in response I get a boom, boom, boom. These 3 stomps, clearly stomps. And as it was doing that, Brent was walking up, and I look over at him and said, "Hey, did you hear that?" He says, "Yeah, I responded to you." And I'm like, "I'm gonna do it again." So
let's push just a little more.
Yeah, no, really. So I did another one this time, even louder. Just loud roar, and it responded again. Boom, boom, boom. But this time it was right at the edge of the trail, right at the edge of the woods. I mean, it wasn't far. I mean, it was within stick throwing distance of us. And Brad looked over and said, "Stop doing that shit." And I'm like, okay, let's join the other ones back at the back of the truck. So that's our LBL encounter. And of course, the other encounter that I just told you about. So I've been fortunate. I've had a few encounters over the years.
Yeah, you have. Mm-hmm. That's an intense one. Have you ever experienced Dogman?
Not that I know of. I can't say that I haven't, because we've had, a lot of the encounter, I guess, symptoms, they overlap between Dogman and Bigfoot. I've only been in Dogman territory a few times where others have seen Dogman. And while I was at the LBL, we were watching these orbs, and there was some fantastic orbs up there too. And we had some activity there that, there was some things that was like, running around us, and there wasn't coyotes or anything because it was very, very, very close. And it didn't really sound like Bigfoot. I mean, it sounded like it wasn't quite as heavy, but it sounded big, big, but not as heavy as a Bigfoot. And later we heard, something that was sort of behind us, and a guy turned on a flashlight, and at the extreme periphery of the light's edge, I saw something rather large kind of dart away and out of the light. And then the guy holding the flashlight was fixated on some eyes that was glowing out in the trees about 20 yards away from us. And we were yelling at it and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and it wasn't intimidated by us. So not really a wild animal. But after we found out, we were looking and almost level with where we were, right? Almost level, right? So later we went back to that same area during the day, and there was this large ravine that where the eyes were, that it was in a large ravine. So if it would have been something standing, it would have probably been 8-9 foot tall, something like that.
Wow.
But we didn't see what it was. But it didn't really, to me, act like Bigfoot. His behavior was a little different. There weren't the typical Bigfoot behavior, I would say, that went along with that. So, and there's a lot of dogman stuff that happens at the LBL. So it's possible I've had some dogman experiences and just not really confirmed it. But I've never seen a dogman, though.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people have actually seen a dogman. I mean, maybe a few, but not many I know of. Mm-hmm. Well, Greg, a lot of people hear me talking about the meadow. What experiences have you had? So they don't think I'm the only nut. So,
oh, wow, okay. Well, the first time I went to the meadow, we were there to film Trey and his group, right? So we're there, and we thought it was rather quiet. There wasn't a whole lot that went on until I started doing this Estes method. So for the people that don't know, you have earphones that's hooked up to a ghost box. Then you have noise canceling headphones put up over that. And then you have a blindfold over that, right? So you can't see anything and you can't hear anything except what comes out of the ghost box. So we're doing this, and Trey's asking me questions, and I'm literally answering some questions that he's asking, but it's in these apocalyptic biblical terms being used. And I remember some very negative imagery going on. What I didn't know was that the camera guy, Brent, he was watching, and he saw a shadow figure try to enter me several times. And it really freaked him out so bad. He absolutely refuses to go back to the meadow. He will not go back there because it freaked him out so bad. I was a bit reluctant to believe that until I started seeing some of the video. And we've got one frame of the shadow person before the cameras cut off. Both cameras cut off at the same time. Which is typical for going out Bigfooting or whatever, messing with the paranormal. So that's one experience I had there. There was another time we're out in the meadow, and I saw this, what I thought was, at first I thought it was a person running across the meadow, but it didn't have a lower half. It was ultimately a shadow person, right? And it gets to the wood line, and then moments later, an orb appears. And there's another group that's with us that's a little bit past the woods that's there. There's a trail, the Penhote Trail. and they're in that trail. And while they're in that trail, this orb stays there with them. And one of the members that was in that group, she got very, very nervous. She felt like she was being watched, and got so uncomfortable that they had to leave. So you could see their flashlight turn on and them walking down the trail. And as they start walking down, this orb starts following them, and it follows them for quite a ways. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So yeah, that happened. I had a psychic experience happen there, which probably freaked me out. That was probably the most I've ever been freaked out was by that psychic experience. And I don't mind sharing this. A gentleman that was that's in our film and was part of the ASI group. His name's Bob Wilson. I mean, a lot of people lovingly called him Grumpy.
Yep.
So Bob had passed away, and his ashes were spread near the meadow. And we were there having a get together in remembrance of Bob. And there was a member of our group that did a group meditation session with us. He led a group meditation session. Now, I didn't know Bob as well as the other members there. I'd only really been talking to him for a couple of years. So my experiences with Bob were limited. But during this meditation session, and it's still kind of difficult to talk about because of the situation. So after the meditation session was over, I was explaining what things that I had seen. And I saw this white orb with a black dot in the middle. I didn't know what that meant, and I was explaining to the group, that, hey, I saw this white orb looking thing and a black dot in the middle. I didn't know what it was. And in Trey, the leader of the ASOG group, he says, I know what that is. I'll tell you in a minute. And so I go on telling my spiel. And at the end, I say, yeah. And I had a really, really good vision of Bob. I said, I know it was Bob. It didn't look exactly like Bob, but I knew it was Bob. So when it was over, Trey let me in on the secret that Bob had seen a white orb with a black dot in the middle there, like a UFO. And I didn't know that story. I didn't know that story at all. And I felt a bit guilty because, it was an experience that Bob was letting everybody else know that he was there, right? And I haven't had an encounter like that before, and it was kind of shaking me up a little. And I had a lot of guilt over it too, because I didn't know Bob as well as the other ones. And I was like, well, why me? But, these other people knew you better, Bob. And quite frankly, it shook me up so much I had to leave. I left immediately after that. When I got into my Jeep and I was making my way out, I was like, Bob, I said, I feel really guilty. I was like, why me? And just as sure as the world, sure as we're sitting here talking, I hear a voice. And he said, it had to be you. I'm like, what are you talking about? And we start this argument, right? We start arguing, literally arguing. And I'm like, what do you mean it had to be me? I didn't know you. They knew you better. I mean, it would have been a better gift for them. He says, no, you don't understand. It had to be you. He says, everybody else knew that story. You didn't. So it took, the way I, would interpret that is he gave me a vision that I didn't know what it was, but it took everybody else to interpret that vision and know what it was. And literally we sat there and argued for a while as I was driving away. And then after I got a little bit of distance, I couldn't hear that voice anymore. But that encounter actually probably shook me up the most. You know,
Wow.
yeah,
That's the first time I've heard that.
yeah. It happened not too long ago.
Yeah, well, I was there, so but I left after the monsoon, so my my janky tent collapsed, if you recall. And so yeah, I left, and I guess you all stayed the rest of the weekend. So, but yeah, I left after the monsoon, and no, I hadn't heard that story. That's great. Yeah, Bob was my hero. Bob was the one who I probably have more experiences with Bob than I have with anybody. And he never showed any fear.
No, he was absolutely fearless. He was a giant in the field, so to speak, an absolute giant. He had lots of knowledge about what was going on and their behavior, and lots of theories. You know that he's developed the theories with experience, right? And there was, I used to call Bob Grumpy, you know, because a lot of people called him Grumpy, and that's what I knew him by. But there was this one time where I just neglected to go out into the meadow with the others, and I just stayed back and talked with Bob. And I talked with Bob for hours and hours. And after that conversation, I never called him Grumpy again. I called him Bob. Yeah, he was the most kindest person you'd ever meet.
Yeah, give you the
Really was.
this back, and
unless you was a pansy. He'd say you're a pansy.
yeah, then he would call you out, yeah.
Stop being a candy.
Yep, like an angel peed on my tongue. But I was when I first met Bob, I was with another group, not either of the two I'm with now, ERG or ASOG, and I was literally out on my first expedition, and I met him and Daryl at the same time, and so I'm the one guy that I think knows so much, the leader, you know. I'm listening to him, and Bob's like, well, y'all are full of shit. He just calls him out. And of course, there was a attraction with Bob because, and especially Daryl, because Daryl's a firefighter. I'm a firefighter. Bob was a medic and a cop. And so there was so we kind of did our own little group there. And that night alone, I learned so much from him. And I realized real quick, the other guy didn't know what the hell he was talking about. He was the proclaimed expert. And that was the night I got zapped, because I went to Bob and I was like, okay, this happened overnight and I feel really weird about it, but I don't know what the hell it was. He's like, you got zapped. It was no big deal.
That sounds like Bob.
And he was the one that told me to put my tent. They had like a place where you would back up, and it was like a little ramp where I guess you could load stuff into a truck. He was the one who told me to put my tent at the bottom of that ramp. Oh, I didn't realize it was like ground zero. Name it Bob. So
yeah, that's his sense of humor.
Yeah, we'll use you as bait. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's on the YouTube channel here under videos. My memorial I did to Bob on the radio. He meant so much to so many people, and he taught so many people, and was always willing to stop and tell you something, how a piece of equipment worked, how to do something or an experience. And yeah, he was an amazing human being, and I'm glad that I got him in my life. Of course, we know the meadow is what we suspect may have helped in a bad way with Bob. So there's a lot of people scared of the meadow.
There is, and probably with good reason. You know, you detected the same 1.6 gigahertz signal there in the meadow, the same as they have picked up at Skinwalker Ranch. There's all sorts of anomalies that happens there in the meadow. I can't say that I've had any Bigfoot activity there. But there's been a plethora of other things there that's been just weird. Now, Trey and I was there one time, and there was something that was talking out in the woods, and it was talking so loud. I said, Trey, I mean, I'm gonna have to go back or something. This is hurting my ears. I said, it's just loud, and you couldn't understand what they were saying, but they were saying something, and it was just loud. I'm like, golly. I said, I know this place is weird, but this is off the charts weird.
It is.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is. The meadow is just weird. And Daryl took us off to another place not too long ago, and we got to see a thermal image of what we think's a Bigfoot. There was 3 of us in a group, and we were sitting back to back in a triangle. And another guy named Sean, he has these 3rd generation night vision goggles that he put on the helmet, and he's like, "Hey, Greg, come look at this." And I'm like, "Okay." And I look, and he sees something behind a tree. And I put up the thermal, and sure enough, I get the same thing through thermal. There was something peeking behind a tree, and it would peek out for a little bit and come back and peek out a little bit. So I was able to record some video on that. So we may use that in a future film, but it was for some pretty cool evidence. But I've got these prototype night vision goggles. Yeah, they actually have like color night vision, and so but there was no mood. You have to have some light, right? So the color it had a whole lot of static in it. I couldn't see much through it, and then it's got an infrared and that you see is just with ambient light, and then it's got an infrared assist with a big spotlight on it. So I kick on the infrared assist, and I'm looking through, and as soon as that big infrared spotlight comes on, it's gone. You don't see it anymore. To me, that really confirmed that they can see into the infrared infrared range. It was just too much. It stayed there for quite a while, peeking out at us, and just spying on us. Being a little little voyeur.
Yeah.
And it's just too much of a coincidence for it to be gone right when I turn on the IR spotlight.
Absolutely. Well, Greg, I only wanted to keep you for an hour, and I'm pushing my limit with you. But before we let you go, I want you to tell everybody where they can find you, find your stuff, and see your film. And maybe you and Amanda can talk about doing some squatching later on.
Oh, absolutely. We'd love to. You can find me on Facebook, Greg Ogles, and we have Relic Films on Facebook as well, and Greg Ogles, Relic Films on TikTok and relicfilms.net. On January 4th, we have the premiere of Cryptic Expeditions, The Land Between the Lakes, and it's going to premiere at the AMC Theater in Coleman, Alabama. Tickets to that are $20 for general admission, and VIPs are $40. There will be a streaming version of the event that you can watch on your computer on the same day, and the link to that will be posted on Black Friday, and it'll also be $19.99 to view. So if you can't make the premiere, try to log in and watch the film, and it's on a day where there's going to be no football game, so you're not going to have to worry about that.
All right. Well, maybe you will see me in the meadow soon. I haven't confirmed.
I hope so.
We'll see. I'll message you offline and tell you. But Greg, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yes.
And I'm going to have you back again because I think we've barely scratched the surface here. So
I could talk for days.
And we love it.
We can listen for days.
Absolutely. Greg, have a nice night. Thank you for coming on, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you for having
Thanks,
me.
Greg.
See you, Greg.
Thanks, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. I cut him off there. That was incredible. And
Yes.
yeah, he's got some great stuff. So I'm excited about it. All right. Well, we have 2 guests every show. And our second guest, I'm running a little bit behind here, but he's an author and an attorney, so don't hold that against him, Amanda. And, well, unless you want a divorce, then maybe. I don't know.
Not this time.
Okay, fair enough. But he's also an author. Let me bring him out. Russell, how are you?
I'm great, and yes, I am a divorce attorney.
I could have used you for my past 2 marriages.
I'm sorry.
She's a preacher, so she starts it, you fix it, I guess. So
Well, I'm not a judge. I'm a lawyer, so I'm not judging. I wish I could have met Bob.
Oh, our friend Grumpy in the Woods?
Yes.
Yes.
And where's the meadow that Greg was talking about?
Well, you'll have to buy a book called The Meadow Project by Trey Hudson. He's our group leader. And we're not giving it out yet because there's still some filming and stuff we're doing in some projects. So, but I'll give you a hint. I'm in Georgia. So.
So am I.
I Googled it.
Okay. All right. Well, hey,
I will Google it too afterwards, Amanda.
Yes, I Googled
yeah,
it.
I'm the entire chapter 13 in that book, by the way.
Nice.
And no, it was not fun.
I just hope you're not chapter 13.
Well, if you mean, if like in the fire department, we call it Signal 13, and yeah, I'm pretty close. So
Okay.
I'm crazy. Russell, I thought you were in Houston for some reason.
Well, that's because I practiced law there for 40 years.
Okay.
But now I live on the side of a mountain outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
Hey, me too. Snellville. So
Vinings.
okay. Yeah. You're next county up, neighbor. All right, cool.
I know. If you could let me know if you know where I can get some good Tex Mex.
Man, I tell you, maybe Dorville or Chambly. It'd be about the closest, and it's fair. It's just fair. It's just fair, to be honest. So I traveled a lot as a flight paramedic, and yeah, I got to experience the good stuff. So yeah, it's fair.
Yes, I weep for missing it.
I can imagine after being there all that time. So you've written 2 books, or is the second book coming out?
No, I've written 2 books. The second book came out yesterday. I'm very excited. On Amazon, I got the Go bestseller sticker already, so I'm happy. And it's maintained its selling status on Amazon for 24 hours, and we both know how transitory book selling on Amazon is. So I'm very happy about it.
That's awesome.
You built some good characters in the first one that you follow through to the second.
Yeah, well, I practiced law for 40 years. And you run across characters that, and you know it because both of you know it from your lives. There are just some people that are different than everybody else. And you don't forget those people. And you bundle them up. And all my life, I was trying to write. But, you get busy with life, raising a family, practicing law. And when my youngest son left for college when I was 50 years old, he took me aside and said, "Dad, you need to finish that book. You're running out of time." He thought I was running out of time at 50 years old. But he was right. And once I got rid of him, I finished the first one, then the second one.
So he was really the hindrance. It wasn't that.
Oh, he's so much a hindrance.
All kids are.
Yes.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. 50. Oh, that's so old. Yeah, my
Yeah,
friend called me an
when
old
you're
man. I'm like, what? You're almost 30.
yeah, when you're 18, 50 is ancient.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was a couple of people that I met that were more than sociopaths. And I was like a moth to fire with these two people because I was so stunned at the way they handled things and the way people were attracted to them. I couldn't stay away from them. One I actually represented, and one I went to college with. And all my life I wanted to write about this personality, and that is the main antagonist in both my books and my third one.
Oh, working on number 3 already?
Yes.
Nice.
Trilogy.
Oh yeah. With the way the business is, you really have to do things like that now. But there's a certain type of people, a sociopath. They're not like the rest of us, like wolves living among sheep. And you probably have met someone like that before, a wolf living among sheep. And it makes for a great character. And the challenge is, really making people perceive that. And you know what I'm talking about because both of you have known those people. You've met those. You don't meet many because you don't want to meet many. But you've met someone like that.
Oh, yeah.
Paramedic in the field. I've absolutely met people like that. So.
I worked with people who pretend to be someone else and beat people up. So
we all do. We all do. I've been a trial lawyer. I was a trial lawyer for 40 years. I don't try law cases anymore. I do miss that part of it because I miss the rush, right, of the battle. But, the strange thing is about facts. There's facts are in 3 worlds. There's the facts that people know. There's the facts that judges and lawyers know and investigators, which are the real facts. And then there's the facts that juries find out about, they make their decisions on, and that's usually a complete different set of facts.
Yep. That's like the police officer told me when I was a rookie paramedic. He said, son, you got to realize there's his story, her story, and then there's the truth.
yes.
Yeah.
And there's all
That's
sorts
exactly
of
what I was
truth.
thinking.
And the crazy, I had to learn this. I worked for a district attorney's office when I was a law student one summer. And I was stunned, number one, that I couldn't tell who was the liars and who was telling the truth. I was stunned. And I didn't realize till after maybe a few years later that they all thought they were telling the truth. And the ones that, except for the really great liars, right? But, you can investigate a case. I used to investigate arson cases in the 80s in Houston when the oil crash happened. Everybody was burning their houses down to collect the insurance money because the real estate had collapsed. And one of my jobs as an attorney was to investigate the insurance frauds. And I would be stunned as you investigate, you would have 5 or 10 people witness something and their stories would be completely different. It's shocking.
Yeah. Arson
Which is why
the
juries
hardest
never
case.
know what's really happening.
That's probably true. Yeah. Well, arson is one of the hardest cases to investigate and especially to convict.
Well, I had a lot of luck, except I had a case where someone used ether to light a dried out Christmas tree and burn down the house that way. And I couldn't prove that was arson. That was the best, because ether does not leave a residue. So it's the best thing you can use. And there's nothing as hot as a dried out Christmas tree.
No, there is not. I've been
So
in many
it
of
was
them.
it was the perfect arson case.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which is
right
why I
around
wrote my second book in a hurricane. My second book is a murder thriller in a hurricane. And when I was going through Harvey for 5 days, I remember thinking, well, there's no police anywhere. And another thing is there's nothing like floodwater to get rid of evidence and DNA. It's the best wash you can have. So I put my murder thriller in a hurricane.
Nice.
That I had never thought of it that way. You know, somehow we all, if you've been out in the, I don't like to call it the real world, but you see things through a different eye once you've been on the streets or in the real world, and you get a little jaded. So I had never thought about that with floodwater, but yeah, everything's in there.
Yeah.
Alligators, snakes, logs, dead animals, dead people.
Fire ants.
Yeah. Everything's just gone. Oh, fire ants. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I hate fire ants.
Yes.
and you know, I've gone through like 5 hurricanes, rode them out. But Harvey, which sat on Houston for 5 days, it was perfect because you have time. And I saw things during that 5 days that I remember thinking nobody would believe this if they saw it. Like manholes exploding and water come jumping out 2 stories high like a fountain, or the way total strangers, they don't care what you think, what your politics are, what race you are, they're going to help you, and they're going to risk their lives to help you. At amazing stuff like that. And I wanted to write about it, and so I wrote about that during the hurricane too in the book, because it was something I didn't want to forget, and I wanted to tell other people about.
Yeah.
That's nice. This last hurricane that came through Helene, did you have any damage from it up in the mountains there? Or?
Okay, I'm from Houston. My wife and I, we've ridden out 5 hurricanes. So for us, that wasn't even a hurricane. It was like 30 miles an hour. We lost power for like 3 hours. What's the hurricane? There was 10 inches of rain where we were. 10 inches in Houston, that's like a bad thunderstorm on an afternoon. So, no, I didn't have much. But we did. Number one is I have a podcast too.
Oh.
And we had a lady that just published a book about her alpaca farm in North Carolina, and she was wiped out during that hurricane, and some of her neighbors had died during the hurricane. She was very broken up about it. We were actually shocked that she still wanted to do the podcast, and I offered to reschedule, but it was a part of her wanting to get her life back in order.
Yes.
She wanted to get back to her life, and it was stunning. The podcast turned out to be nothing but her telling what the hurricane was like in North Carolina, back in the little valley that was just perfect to be a fulcrum of the hurricane as it ripped through North Carolina, and it was very terrible.
Oh, absolutely.
So we spoke to her. My wife works for a large company that has been very involved in helping the people in Augusta, Georgia, and that surrounding area, because they got hit really bad too.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people are like, well, they should have, not tried to ride it out. I'm like, there's no way possible that you could prepare for that. I lived in East Tennessee for many years, and you're usually shielded by the mountains. By the time it gets over the mountains, if it makes it over the mountains, it's nothing. I mean, you're going to get some tornadoes. Okay, we're used to tornadoes, but yeah, it was horrible. I talked to another podcaster. He was an amateur radio operator, and he was like 15 miles west of it. didn't know anything had happened. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like there was, minimal damage. And he got on his radio and called out on his radio. And the first thing that come back was some guy saying, "Can you please help me?" And it's like he's first thing in the morning. And he's like, "Okay, what do you need?" And he says, we need some help. There's, stuff washed away. There's people gone. He goes, but most importantly, there's a dead body in the top of my oak tree. Somebody needs to come get it. And so he gets on the phone and starts calling. They're like, there's nobody to call. There's nobody. The fire department's wiped out. The police department, the ambulances are all wiped out. And we can't get to them. And so, yeah, he told some horrific stories about that. And like I said, you just, even here in Atlanta, you don't think about one coming this far north or maybe from the east.
It reached us here in Kentucky. We were without power for 3 days.
Amanda, are you from Kentucky? Are you in Kentucky?
Yes.
What part of Kentucky are you from?
I'm close to Lexington. I'm in Woodford County where they make Woodford Reserve bourbon.
I have been to your county.
Oh, nice.
Because I've been to the Woodford Brewery, or I guess it's not a brewery, distillery, right?
Yes.
Yes, I've actually been there. So I know
Okay.
I like that place. It's a good place.
Yes. I love it. I grew up here. Been here my entire life.
I am doing a guest place on a real crime podcast, and we're talking about the sheriff and district judge case in Kentucky.
Yes.
It's going on right now.
Yeah, where he killed him. He was
Yeah, he
sleeping with
shot a
his daughter.
judge in the courthouse. The sheriff did.
Yeah.
County sheriff shot the county
Yeah.
judge in
The
the courthouse.
judge was sleeping with his daughter.
Oh,
Well, there is actually more to it than that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
wow.
I know there's a little more. I was actually in the chair getting a tattoo when this guy walked in, and he was like, "Did you all hear what happened?" And I guess he was from the county this happened in, and he was talking to the guys in the tattoo shop about it, and I overheard it all.
But it's quite a story.
Because the judge and him were married to sisters, so he was sleeping with his niece.
What?
Well,
Yeah,
I can
it's
tell you
crazy.
that they were the sheriff's attorney during the preliminary hearing, which I attended by video,
Uh-huh.
was asking the investigating detective about apps on the phone and whether there was any evidence on the phone of the judge also having a relationship or talking to the sheriff's wife.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think that there's some surprises that's coming.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think it was more than just the daughter and the wife.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's so there's that going on from Kentucky.
Yeah.
Wow. I had not heard any of this.
And I think some of the other people were also around the age of the sheriff's daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's bad.
So
Wow.
and I'm enjoying dealing with that on a real crime podcast because I miss being in a courtroom, right? Because that's the real juice that I always enjoyed is the battle with another attorney in the courthouse.
One of my ex-husbands told me I would have made a great lawyer because I'm great at arguing with people.
You know, people think that, but that's not what being a lawyer really is. Being a lawyer is really, the daughter was 17.
Yeah.
Some say in some records she's 16. Others says that in other records it says she's 17.
Either way, she's under 18.
Right. But the main work of lawyers is paperwork, believe it or not arguing. Arguing is like 1% of what you do.
Right.
Waiting on other people and judges and everything's like 2 or 3% of what you do.
Right.
And paperwork is the rest.
Yeah.
Just like everything else.
Right? I'm anxious to hear more about the sheriff and the judge and see what happens.
Well, they're having a hearing next week, so, but there's not anything else that's going to come out for a while.
No.
Oh,
But this isn't about
Jesus
that.
Christ. Yeah, no, but that's crazy. Oh.
It is crazy.
This was about Bob in the Meadow, which I will Google as soon as I leave this show. I may have to come back on to tell you my opinions of it. You would be shocked that I have opinions about things.
Well, no, it's funny. I got a message. Actually, I think it was tagged in the comments for when I advertise this show. We have our own paranormal attorney. He comes in and does guest spots.
Does he exist?
Yes, he exists, and he tells it.
In this world or in the
He's
Meadow?
still with us.
Well, it's kind of questionable. He's in Baltimore, so
So he's in hell.
yeah, pretty much.
So that's what that means. He's in
He's
hell.
probably watching right now. Sorry, Jeff, but he's
Sorry,
like,
Jeff. I didn't
he's
mean
like,
that.
remind him of the show we had where we talked about killing Bigfoot and would it be legal? So,
Oh, I got a story like that, and it's real.
okay, hook
Okay,
us up.
I got a story like that. Okay, so bunch of lawyers in South Texas hunting dove. It's a big deal. People fight all year about which group they're going to go on and what camp they're going to go to. And we were down in South Texas. Now, there was a lady about 65 years ago that the local sheriff, there was a circus or something, but they had to seize several snow monkeys, Japanese snow monkeys that were being used as an exhibit. He didn't know what to do with them, and he thought he was going to have to put them to sleep. And this poor old lady said, "No, I have this ranch out here, and I'll keep them in a cage." So she took the snow monkeys. Well, within a couple of years, the snow monkeys had gotten away. And you'd think, now South Texas is what you think it is. It is hot, desert, and prickly pear. The funny thing about snow monkeys is that they thrive on prickly pear blooms. They eat them like candy. And there's this huge tribe of snow monkeys. The biggest population of snow monkeys in the world, except for Japan, is in South Texas. And the thing is that there is no law protecting those monkeys. And except for the local sheriff who's told people he's not going, if you shoot a snow monkey, he's going to arrest you for something really bad. Everybody knows it. While I was there, someone shot a snow monkey.
Oh, gosh.
And it was a bad scene. And what was terrible about it, I didn't see it. I heard third hand. When the man shot the snow monkey, he shot it, and the people that saw it, what I heard, it was awful because the monkey acted just like a human. He looked down, he touched and looked where he was shot, looked in the blood and went, ah! It was terrible. And no one has bothered those snow monkeys since because that was the one time. And you know, that's terrible that it had to even be one time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh my
How big
God.
do snow monkeys get?
They get big enough to. My wife has a monkey phobia. We've been to Japan. Well, we've been all over the world, but there are monkeys in India and Japan, and everywhere we've gone that there's monkeys, they have chased my wife. It's the funniest thing ever. Everyone can be standing in a crowd, and the monkeys walk up, she takes off, and they go after her. It's the craziest
Oh
thing you
my
ever saw.
gosh.
But I guess they're
Oh.
like the size of baboons. They're like waist high.
Yeah. And they look like they have really sharp teeth.
You know, they're just little monkeys. They're fine. If you don't, if you don't walk around with food, right? If you don't bother them, if you keep your distance and you don't run, but you can't run from a snow monkey or any kind of monkey. In India, you can't run from monkeys because they'll come after you because they're monkeys.
Yeah, chase is on. When I first got into Bigfooting, I was of the camp that in order to prove their existence, we need a body. And I know that sounds bad, but that's how science works. And a wise old friend of mine, who we've just talked about, Grumpy, he was a law enforcement officer. He said, I've had one in my hairs, had one in the crosshairs. He said, and it looked up at me and it was breastfeeding. He said, I decided right then. And I was like, oh, wow. And I was talking to another guy. That really changed my opinion because I thought we were just chasing this big monkey in the woods that nobody knew what it was. And he said, you don't understand how science works. Once they have, let's say they get a male, they're going to want a female. Then they're going to want a child. Then they're going to want a baby. Then they're going to want one that's pregnant. He says, it'll never stop. He says, so you don't even want to open that book. And so I've since changed my mind after some of the experiences I've had, but wow, that's what Bob, the story told he had it in his crosshairs and it looked at him.
To me. Yes.
Well, he's gone, unfortunately, much too soon. Yeah. Well, hey, if your wife gets chased by monkeys, you can bring her out in the woods Bigfooting with us and we'll let her run and we'll film. So.
It's, I'm going to be in so much trouble when she finds out that I told that story. I can tell you, it's going to be so bad.
You may need an attorney.
We know
I've been
nothing.
married 41 years and I'm a divorce attorney. Can you think, is that the craziest thing you ever heard?
Well, you know what not to do after all these years.
Well, I can tell you this. So like I told you before, one of the biggest parts of being a lawyer is waiting. You wait all the time. So one morning we were waiting on the judge to come into the courtroom so we could start our hearings. And there was about 30 lawyers up in the front, sitting at the tables, waiting. And there was, the whole courtroom was packed with all the witnesses and clients for all the hearings. And naturally, because I'm that way, I was standing up telling funny stories to the other attorneys because that's what I do, right? In fact, if you don't laugh at my jokes, if you're on the jury panel, I don't pick you to be on a jury because that means I'm not connecting with you. But so I'm telling this story to these two male lawyers in front of me. And I say, and I was married 15 years before I learned how to be a husband. And there was this huge slam on the table behind me. And I look around and there's this woman lawyer sitting behind me. She looks up at the crowd of lawyers. Everyone's kind of stopped, even in the audience, and looking at her. She says, that was the problem. I've been married 3 times, but never more than 10 years.
They say once you get past 7.
I was a slow learner.
And you can't run now, so it's too late. Well, I told my son when he got married, it's the smallest set of handcuffs you'll ever see. So
I told my sons prenups, but they didn't listen to me.
Yeah, well, what was funny is I'm hugging him as he's about to walk up to the altar. I whisper in his ear, "It's not too late to run. I'll cover."
Oh, yeah.
And we love our daughter-in-law. We have 2 grandchildren. I'm a new grandfather, so
Okay, try to save yourself. It might help.
Yeah, it's ugly, but they moved up. They were here in Atlanta and moved up to Vermont because they wanted snow. And he calls me his first snowstorm, and he says, "Dad, they're expecting a minor snow." And I grew up in Washington D.C. A minor snow is maybe a foot, maybe.
Right.
And he says, "No, 4 feet." I'm like, "That's minor."
Yeah.
You'll see me in July. 1 weekend in July. That's it.
I'm a serious snow skier. I miss Rocky Mountain snow. But You know, the thing about Georgia is if you get a little ice storm that closes down the whole state,
Yes,
it's the craziest thing I ever saw.
the book I'm working on centers around that exact ice storm that closed the store down. So Chris says that he would accept jury duty as a career if he could be on your jury duty daily. You're funny as hell, Russell.
Chris, thank you so much. And you would be picked because he would laugh at my jokes, right?
Oh yeah.
Because I only strike people that don't laugh at jokes.
I would be right there beside him. I tell like the bad dad jokes, like what do you call a fish with one eye or with no eyes?
What?
See? We would get that.
Didn't expect that from you, Amanda.
Preachers have a lot of time they have to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. We have to fill those gaps with jokes.
Yes, I've always preferred cigarette smoking preachers though, because they're shorter winded.
There you go. Yeah. You
That
run
way I
out of
won't miss
breath.
the football game on Sunday afternoon.
There you go.
That's great. You
We
should
can't
just
miss
stand up.
football.
You
I
just
used
stand
to
up
be in
and,
an improv troupe.
well, there you go.
My son started doing comedy, and his main jokes when he first started were about his father. Can you
I
believe
believe that.
that?
Yeah, definitely.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
I'm going to bet you were a good influence on him. So
I tried. You know, the thing about it is, and this is true. This is true. All parents leave some mark on their kids they don't mean to. And I remember telling them as they grew up that I knew I was messing something up, but I do the best I can. And now they're all adults, and now they sit around telling jokes about their parents, and that's one of the things they laughed about. What dad screw up on you? What did he screw up on you?
oh yeah. Yeah. Or if you have them together for Thanksgiving and one lets out a little secret that dad or mom didn't know, well, then they start ratting on each other and you find out things they were doing growing up.
You know, the trouble is they start telling stories about stuff they got away with that I don't want to know about still. It's awful.
Yeah.
But I have a story I got to tell you.
Let's hear
Okay.
it.
Because I was talking, my son called me. It's a great thing when your adult children call to just say hi. And so my youngest son, David, called me this morning, and I told him I was going to be on your show tonight. Of course, he told jokes about, I was going to be able to stay awake till 10 o'clock. So, but I damned him to hell for that, but that's another story. And so he said, "Are you going to tell the story?" And I said, "Yeah." And this is as close as I can get to a paranormal story. Okay, and this is true. So I went to 5 undergraduate schools before I went to law school. One of those was Texas Tech in Lubbock, Texas. Now the thing about Lubbock, Texas is there's only one spot in one little corner right outside of town that's allowed to sell alcohol. Nowhere else in the whole county. It's got to be the most corrupt thing you ever saw. Okay? Because that means that 2 stores are the monopoly for the whole county to sell hard liquor. And so one Saturday afternoon, 2 or 3 girls in the dorm asked me if I wanted to go drive out to the liquor stores and get alcohol. And I was like, sure, let's go. So I was riding in the back seat, and we're riding down the loop, which is 3 lanes on each side, just like every other loop and every other mid-size 150,000 person town. You've driven down those loops yourself. And I look over to the left, and there are cars coming the other way are braking and sliding by us. And there's a chow running across the road, and behind it is a little, about 3-year-old boy. And these cars are sliding by. And the girl that's driving the car that I'm sitting in the back seat of pulls to a stop right across from where that kid and that dog is, and says, "Russell, get that kid." So I open the door, and the car slides through the dirt between the two ongoing lanes, right as I open the door, and I freeze. I got to tell you, I'm not sure if I was going to get out of that car or not. That scared the heck out of me because that car went right by. And I heard a voice, and I always assumed it was that a car stopped behind me, but I didn't look. I was too scared. Okay, son, get that boy. That's what I heard. And I immediately jumped, grabbed the kid, rode down because Lubbock is completely flat. There is no hills in Lubbock. So the way they engineer the highways or the loops so they don't flood is they elevate them. So you have these big grass hills that the lanes are on. I grabbed that kid, rode down the hill. I could feel the air of a car slide by me as we went down that hill. And I don't know how that chow made it down the hill, but the chow made it down the hill too. We rode down the hill, and I never did see where that man came from that voice from behind me. And there was this big field, and it was a new housing development across the field. I have this 3-year-old kid. How am I gonna find which house this kid goes to? And this chow scared me to death. Turns out it was nothing but a teddy bear, so I didn't need to be scared of it, but it was a big dog, so I was afraid of it when I first saw it. And we decided we don't know what we're gonna do. So we put the kid in the car, the girl had come around, and we put the chow in the car, and we drove over to the housing development across this big field and drove down the street till we saw a screaming, panicking, crying mother running down the street. That was the kid's mother. It was easy to find, it turned out.
Yeah.
And can I tell you how freaked out she was when we opened the door and she saw the kid was in the back seat of that car? I mean, you couldn't believe how freaked out she was, right? So she ran and grabbed her child and ran into the house. And of course, the child jumped out because it's teddy bear, right? And it turned out she came out later when she calmed down because we didn't want to leave because I didn't want to get arrested later at the dorm. So we waited, and she came out, and the dog had dug itself out from the back fence and headed across the field. And the little boy crawled under the fence and chased his dog, and that's what had happened.
Gosh.
And so the neighbors came out, and when she calmed down, but that voice, never knew what it was. But that was my big experience with that.
Well, I know Amanda's leaning back already. So that's what started
What
me.
does that mean? That's body language. What does that mean?
If I were that mom, I would be moving
Can
away
you
from
believe
the
that?
highway.
And she was in a complete panic. And
Yeah.
you should have seen the look on her face when we pulled up. I opened the door and that kid was with me.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you had taken the kid.
Yeah, well, she didn't know I hadn't.
Right.
Yeah. No, what I was going to say is I met a lot of lawyers thanks to this. I was on duty as a firefighter paramedic, and I was attacked
You probably
by
been
a dog.
deposed quite a few times too.
Oh yeah. I'm post certified in communications. So right before the dog attack, we got called. It was a crazy call. I mean, it was a guy having a seizure on the front porch. He was fighting with the other crew. They called us. We were right around the corner. We pop over. My sergeant goes running by. I hop out of the truck, and you don't run to a scene. I don't tell my sergeants just do it. You don't run. They were fighting on the front porch. And I hear this voice in my head say, don't get bit. And on the front porch, there's like 4 or 5 little yippy chihuahuas. And I'm like, whatever. Kick it. I'm done. I'm not worried about it. I take another step, maybe 2 at the most. Voice screams in my head, don't get bit. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I look on the front porch, and there's still these yippy dogs. And I was like, I'll be fine. And I was like, who the hell am I arguing with? And about that time, I was attacked by the pit bull. So, like you, I was a slow learner. So, yeah, I got to meet many wonderful and very entertaining and colorful lawyers. So, so the first time I sat down with my lawyer, he's dropped the F-bomb, and he looks at me and goes, you're a fireman. You're okay with that, right? And I'm like, yeah, but you're a lawyer. He goes, yeah, so. Yeah. So, but so that's what got me into doing these shows, was talk to other people, see if I can figure out what that voice was. Was it a guardian angel? Was it a relative?
Well, I'm convinced it was an old man that pulled up behind us, but I just never looked, and I was too scared to turn to my left and look behind to see, because I thought I was going to get killed trying to get that kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is a good story. So you don't have any ghost stories or Bigfoot, or no snow monkey stories other than the one getting shot?
I the snow monkey story. I do have another story that my wife believes, but I don't. And you can tell we've been married 41 years. We do have, and don't tell her about the snow monkey thing, because I'm gonna get in trouble about it. But when her cousin died, we inherited her dog that was 11 years old. It was like she was kind of an old maid aunt. You know, she lived alone with this dog, and the dog was 11 years old, so it had taken on her weird personalities. But she had these electric candles. You've seen those, right? Where you turn them on underneath. And for some bizarre reason, she just loved these candles. And and after she died, my wife wanted those candles because it reminded her of Margie. And so when Christmas comes, she'd put them up. So the first year, Margie died like Thanksgiving. So that year, she put the candles up like 2 weeks before Christmas. And 4 or 5 times, all the lights would come on at once. And we lived in a high rise, and she was like, oh my gosh, Margie's turning the lights on. No, it's not. I don't know what that is, but it's cheap candles. Just something's happened. No, it's not. We would fight about this. It was not a bad fight, but kind of a funny fight, right? And I was like, between that and that haunted dog, Margie needs to just move on. That was a haunted dog, dude. Let me tell you. Margie would actually, since it was just her and the dog, she would actually cook for 2. Like if she cooked brisket, she'd cook brisket for 2. And she would feed that dog. So after Margie was gone and I inherited the dog, I got fat shamed every time I took it to the vet. It was awful.
Sure. Yeah.
It was awful because it started out as a schnauzer, but it had such a big belly. It was more like a pot-belly pig.
Oh my gosh.
And I can tell you, the vets would get so mad. I'm like, it's not my fault.
They do me the same way with my dog Petey. So we got another dog, so he would get more exercise. I'm hoping they just chase each other so they get exercise.
Well, don't feed them brisket, okay?
Well, the last time Petey had to go to the vet, they were like, oh, he's lost some weight. I was like, yes, it worked. They're like 0.2 pounds.
Oh, that's not. You just save more money. Yeah. Not getting the other dog than that.
Right.
Not
It
many
didn't
calories
work.
burned. Oh,
Didn't
Russell, I love your stories, and I'm assuming your book is full of these things. So
Yes. It's a well, it is a group of stories, but mainly it's characters that I couldn't get out of my mind, that I had a story about, and I I had to get it written, and I didn't get started till I was 50 because I would start till my son said you need to do it because you're running out of time because you're pretty old, Dad, at 50.
yeah, and you're writing the trilogy. Love it.
And the next one, so I have Murder for Me, which was the first one, Murder by Storm, which is the continuation of the battle uh, during a hurricane. And then the next one will be Murder by Trial, which I'm going to try to depict that whole thing I talked about earlier about there are three sets of facts. There's the one that everyone thinks they know. There's the one that judges and detectives and lawyers know, and then the one that the jury finds out about, which is sometimes doesn't even have anything to do with the real facts.
True. Well, I also read somewhere else that maybe it was your wife that does children's books, or
Now, my wife and I write children's books. It's a weirdo thing because I'm not a children's book type of guy, but I was I raised all these kids. I was a great dad. My kids would tell you that. The one thing that I don't do well is things like parents' nights or other families' kids' birthdays. I don't do that stuff very well. I'm not very cooperative. I don't do group stuff too well. So I was at a grandparents' day at the daycare for my granddaughter, right? My worst freaking nightmare. I'd almost have a heart attack at these things. And I have to sit through, all this choir singing, terrible choir singing. You got to love it. And then we go to the class, and my granddaughter comes up to me with this stuffed elephant and says, Pops, that's what she calls me, Pops. I love elephants the most. Well, so do I. In fact, I have this thing about great African fauna and how do you protect great African fauna? Elephants, rhinoceroses, hippos, the large fauna of Africa. Because I don't know if in 100 years they're going to exist anymore. And there's whole philosophies and theories about how do you do that. And so I saw that, and I was so inspired that after we left, I went to the cigar bar, sat down, and wrote an outline of a short story about a little girl, my granddaughter, saving a baby elephant that gets lost in a zoo. Took it home, my wife like, oh, that's terrible. She rewrote it. So we started working on it back and forth, and we published that. And because I wanted to write a story, I wanted to write a story that my granddaughter would get to be in, but also I wanted to write a story that encouraged children to be supportive of the existence of elephants and rhinoceroses and the beautiful things that could possibly be gone in 100 years. And so we wrote that one, and we wrote it together, and my publisher at the time, I was telling jokes about it, about how stupid it was that we had written this. And she's like, well, I want to read that. Okay. So I gave it to her. She's like, this is great. I'm putting this in a book. Okay. She said, I need another story. So we wrote another one. She loved it. They both went into the book. It was a little book about friends and for kids, a third grader reading book. And both stories made it in. It was nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is very nice. And your granddaughter will always have that. So that's cool.
Yeah, she wasn't impressed. You never know.
Yeah, that's cool. Chris says that your wife writes horror stories about monkeys.
I love that, Chris. That's great.
Please edit that out of the podcast, please, because I don't want that to be seen. That could cause me an issue. I could sleep on the couch for that.
I also only got like 3 followers, so you're okay. So
Okay, I trust you. I know you wouldn't lie to me.
it's the worst thing to say to a paramedic. I trust you.
Oh my gosh.
That's because you'll say whatever you have to say to get that guy or that lady that's injured in the ambulance. Oh yeah, don't worry. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Oh, we go red lights and sirens all the time.
Oh yeah.
You're not having more chest pain, are you? Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm seeing my cardiologist in the morning, so I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, don't talk about that. Yeah. Well, it's when your patient looks at you and goes to hug you, and you're looking around and there's nobody in the back of the ambulance, and goes, "No, not you, the guy sitting beside you." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, it's Jesus," and then dies. I'm like, "What? No!"
Yep.
I was a
Yeah.
brand new paramedic, like literally the first week on the job. Oh,
Wow.
Scared the hell out of me. He lived though. He lived, and I got like parade thrown in my honor because it was the mayor of some small town son.
I'm sorry. You don't want that kind of attention. You don't want that kind of attention.
No, because I did it inadvertently. Despite my best effort or worst efforts, he lived.
And what makes him think that was Jesus? That might have been someone else waiting on him.
I don't know. So, but yeah.
Oh, the preacher is judging me for that comment. Did you see Amanda? She was
I don't
judging.
judge.
I'm telling you, she was judging.
She was filing her nails.
She was judging. She leaned back. She lowered her chin. She was judging.
Now she might have been trying to read the screen, to be honest with you, Russell.
Yeah, and then I'll be like this.
We were talking about
I don't
that
have my
pre-show. I do
glasses
this
on.
now because I have trifocals, I think. So,
I just don't want any more edit. We just need to edit all the monkey jokes out of this show.
you
I
know what?
googled them too to see where they are.
We'll blame
Oh,
Greg.
did you check the snow monkeys?
Yeah,
It's true, isn't it? It's hard to
Yeah.
believe. It's hard to
yeah
believe.
there's a
snow
whole
monkeys.
story on them.
Oh yeah, I've been
Yeah.
there.
Crazy.
I know
You
Greg
don't
is
mess with that
probably
sheriff, and you don't
still
mess with the
watching
snow
this
monkeys.
show, thinking,
Yeah.
I'm going to go film a snow monkey.
Right?
They're
There's got
not-
to be some paranormal
You know,
stuff
when
with the snow
snow
monkey.
monkeys that live in the desert aren't as their fur is so covered with dirt and stuff. They don't look like snow monkeys anymore.
They're
They are,
all
but-
over the Dilly area.
Yeah, and it's great dove hunting territory too.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, you know that one of the hurricanes in Florida took a bunch of the zoos out, and they never got all of the chimpanzees and monkeys back. And there's a section of the Everglades that there's monkeys in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was true in Houston too before Harvey. Houston used to have this great parrot population from escaped parrots living. Then when Harvey hit, it wiped them all out. So
Interesting.
hurricanes give and hurricanes take away.
Well, I hope we're through with them for this year. Goodness, we've had enough. Oh. Well, where you're at up there, you know, you're in prime Bigfoot country, so just go out in your backyard and let out some whoops. And
You know, my trouble's more with the deer eating the flowers.
Oh no.
And I have neighbors that feed the deer, so I don't even have much hope to get rid of the deer.
no.
You need a Bigfoot. We find deer carcasses out in our woods.
Well, I would. I got to tell you, we spend a lot of time up in the Blue Ridge, Georgia. Have you been to Blue Ridge, Georgia?
Mhm.
We've spent a lot of time up there. Georgia's a beautiful, beautiful place. If you have not been to Georgia, you need to come to Georgia and drive through the hill country. I know people in Georgia call it mountains. I joke and say that I live on a mountain in Georgia, but these aren't mountains.
Oh yeah.
But these are beautiful hills covered with beautiful forest and waterfalls everywhere. It's just and the people you meet out in the country are incredible, and the tomatoes you can buy out in the country are just the best tomatoes I ever had in my whole life.
Oh, I just eat them. Just a whole tomato. Just eat it.
I'm surprised that there's not a peach population in Georgia. The last 2 years, I moved here the last 2 years ago, and I don't know if there's been a drought, some kind of peach fungus or something, but Georgia has, for the last 2 years, Georgia's really not produced very many peaches.
Huh.
So all the peaches come from South Carolina that you buy in Georgia, which is weird because this is a peach state, but you can still get great tomatoes.
Well, they're saying we haven't had rain in a month here in Atlanta, so it's going to be a horrible year for the crops again. So,
I had rain this weekend.
Well, yeah, that's one thing a lot of people don't realize about the Northeast Georgia mountains. In parts of it, it's almost like a rainforest.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
If I could get rid of the deer. If we can find a Bigfoot, I will actually build him a place to hide or something. But if it gets rid of the deer, I will pay for it.
Well, I would give you some advice about maybe looking online to see if you could find a monkey pheromone, but you'd get in too much trouble.
Don't tell that joke. You're not helping me. You're not a good person. The preacher needs to judge you, not me. She's judging me, but she needs to judge you.
All the time, man.
Preacher, say something to him. He's oppressing me. I feel like yes, I'm being repressed. Help.
He's
I'm
going to
being
end up in the
repressed.
doghouse.
I have a feeling you'll talk your way out of it. So, Russell, I don't want to keep you too much longer because I promised you about an hour. Where could everybody find your stuff? And I'm going to have to definitely get your stuff and do some reading. So,
well, you can find my books on Amazon, Murder for Me and Murder by Storm. My webpage is russelllittleauthor.com. And you can come on Facebook and I do Russell Stories on Facebook, and you can follow me there. And I actually tell stories about what's going on. Like tonight, but by the way, you're brilliant in the thing you do with podcasts. When you send me the link, you also send me something to post on my pages about it. That's brilliant. Nobody else has done that. So know how smart you guys are. So I posted that when you sent that. I actually reposted it again tonight with the comment that I'm not going to do another 10 o'clock because I'm too old. But you can follow on Russell Stories. You can follow, and I'm telling you what podcast I'm on, what I'm doing, what's going on with the books, where we're traveling, all that stuff.
Nice.
When's your next book come out?
Well, it came out Tuesday. The next book will be out probably in another year.
Okay. Well,
I'm a slow writer. I'm not one of those cats that can produce a book every 6 months.
Well,
I'm not that cat.
Well, you might have just better quality. So we're going to have you back on in a year, and I will go follow you here just as soon as we get offline. So
I already sent you a friend request.
You already got your first
prayer request. Have you judged him, Amanda? Have you done your job? And
I pray for him.
Please pray for him. Pray harder and more violently, please.
And if Jeff is watching, maybe I can have you on with my paranormal attorney, and you and him can swap stories, and we could just have a weird show. So if you like sports,
I would be telling too many Baltimore Raven jokes and getting him upset, I think.
Yeah, he might be a little upset about that. He's a Ravens fan, so. I'm assuming you're a Texans fan, so.
No, absolutely not.
Oh.
While I was a professional student for a long time, one of the universities I went to was the same one Patrick Mahomes went. So when the Kansas City Chiefs drafted him, my favor went to them. And so I've had a really good run, and it's why I tell Ravens jokes.
Well,
My husband's team is the Chiefs.
Okay.
Yeah.
the Ravens missed it by a toenail, and then they might have been undefeated. So, yeah.
They've lost 2, not 1.
What's right? Who was the other one they lost to?
I don't know, because it was free.
Wasn't the
It was a freak
Redskins?
accident.
It wasn't the Redskins. They didn't win the 95 belt. That's my,
No.
excuse me, the Commanders. I'll get, don't at me for that. It's habit. You grew up there,
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're into sports, maybe you want to come in and do some sports stuff with us, or heck, just come on again sometime and shoot.
You can invite me anytime. You can.
At 10 o'clock.
Okay. No, not 10. Actually, you can. As long as we edit out the monkey stuff.
We'll just get
And
on here and tell bad dad jokes.
Right. No.
Thank you for staying up. And if your son's listening, we kept him alive. So he's worked his way through it.
It was so much fun.
It was.
Yes,
and thank you for the
that's
compliment. It's just recently that I've learned to do that. And you would be surprised how few people actually do it. And
Nobody. It's brilliant.
They don't do it. And then, but the guests don't always follow through either. And it's like, you're helping me help you. I'm promoting your stuff.
Plus, you have the coolest name of any of the podcasts I've been on. It's the coolest. I love it.
Well, thank you.
And please invite me on again.
You might become on a rotation. So if you're up Saturday nights late, well, no, never mind. So we'll want
That one goes really late.
Plus, Amanda would judge me too much because I've been to Kentucky for a reason, and I might not be a good guest because I might slur a little bit.
You're fine. We all enjoy our Woodford Reserve, Russell.
I think I may like those preachers from Kentucky. I don't like sheriffs from Kentucky or district judges.
Check out some of her pictures. You'll really like her after you see the pictures. Oh, and by the way, let you know a little secret. Don't get too carried away. She's an ex-professional wrestler. She could kick your ass. So.
Oh, I actually, I've run 10 marathons. I used to help people train for their first marathons. And one of the people I helped was a roller derby competitor. And so I understand it. That doesn't mean they're not beautiful people. They're not beautiful women. They're just tougher than some of the rest of us.
I was the team paramedic for the Atlanta Roller Girls their first few seasons.
So
I have seen some crazy injuries. I mean, there's like bones sticking up and they're wanting to get up and fight. And I'm like, no, sit, stop, don't move. You're freaking me out. So
I know that's a great. You're freaking me out. You're freaking me out.
You can fix it later.
If you see the paramedic freaked out, there's a problem. So.
Yeah.
Right now, I have to punch her in the face, and then you can fix the bone.
Exactly.
Not in the face. Not in the face.
Why not the face?
Because you don't want to mess up pretty faces. Break her arm. Anything else.
Girls don't usually punch in the face. Never mind. Well, that's another show. Maybe we could do.
I actually write about some of that in the book. One of my books.
Oh yeah.
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 Okay.
Hey, if you ever need any advice, and I've offered this to a few other authors, and one of them's taken me up on it in a paramedic or fire setting, let me know. I'll give you. I don't want anything for it. Just I'll give you professional advice on. Because I get tired of us being portrayed stupid. We're not. I went to school for 2 years to be a paramedic. I'm not.
That's funny you say that because I would never have thought that. I've never seen that betrayal. I've always thought that. I always found the betrayal to be like courageous or brave or helpful.
Yeah.
Stupid is not something that I connect with that.
But
I don't
they
connect
have
that.
them doing stupid things like you're running in a burning.
Yeah, well, you
building
do
that's all
stupid shit.
flaming
You
up,
run into
and
fire.
it's fun.
You run into car accidents. You do scary shit.
Fun. It's
Right.
fun.
Sorry,
But, yeah.
Amanda. Don't get mad.
Oh no, shit, fuck, Dan, we're good.
I'm sorry. I'm giving you crap though too.
Well,
See, by
this is going to
saying
be on
that, I'm
FM,
actually giving
Amanda.
you crap.
You can bleep that part out, Glenn.
No,
All right,
he's too busy bleeping out the monkey stuff.
Right, yeah.
well, just tell her not to listen in Nashville, so we'll be okay. So, or Atlanta. Don't listen in Atlanta.
And I didn't see any part of Nashville the last time I was there that have any problem with anything I said.
Well,
It's the wildest town I've been in since I came to Georgia.
this will be in Nashville this weekend, and it'll be in Atlanta probably one Friday night in December. So, because we're a little backed up on episodes there. But Russell, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, sir. And
Yes.
I'm going to send you a friend request here in just a few minutes. So,
Okay, have a great day.
you too,
you,
Russell.
Russell. Thank
You made
you.
my night even better. Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, he was fantastic. We had such
He
great
was.
guests tonight.
We
Greg
did.
and Russell. Oh my gosh.
We did. It was a great show. Some shows you feel like you're pulling teeth, and
Yes.
some shows when I'm editing, it's like the Misfits. I had 10 extra minutes at the end of last week's episode for FM because I edited out all the ahs, and the breathing and the other things. And so it's like, what do you do? So, yeah. But that was great. And speaking of which, real quick, let's thank WDJY. Thank you for allowing us on your FM bands, and WRFN, Radio Free Nashville. And of course, we can't forget Ross at YurgsRadio.com. And we were also on Rainbow Radio
Let's
today.
see. Yes, Rainbow Radio. If Salty Dog is still here, thank you. Shay and I had a blast on Two Broke Witches. Thank you for joining us and watching. Chris, you're always here with us. Thank you.
Yes, Chris has become a loyal supporter, and we appreciate it.
Yes.
So thank you
We
very much.
appreciate you, Chris.
We appreciate all of our fans. So,
Yes.
and we're growing and we're learning, and only good things from here on out. We're getting great guests, and yeah. Greg says, "Don't follow me. I do stupid things." Greg, you might have to investigate snow monkeys. So, and Chris says that was the fastest 2 hours I can remember in a long time. Greg and Russell were terrific. Yes, they were.
Yes.
They really were. And I thank both of them. I'm gonna have both of them back on. Hell, I may have them on at the same time.
Right?
I think that would
Greg,
be-
I already sent you a friend request. It's too late. We have to talk Sasquatch.
yeah. Well, heck, you can have him up. So
Yeah, I'm not too far from Land Between the Lakes. And my family's there. I could just go to Hoptown and stay with family.
there you go.
Yeah.
Um,
right there.
I didn't want to say this last night, but since we're two separate shows now, you were talking about getting game cams and stuff. You're never
Yeah.
going to catch a Sasquatch that way.
No.
It's not going to happen. So you could use those for ghosts and stuff. And in fact, that's the advice we give people that are being pestered by them. Put those up around the perimeter of your house. They won't come around.
Yeah.
So, well, I have a grumpy story about that, but that'll be another night. Because we've ran over here.
Yes.
Amanda, thanks for coming on, and I hope Cheyenne gets a chance to listen back to this one. I know she's at work tonight, so we miss her, and hopefully Bob got to listen in too. So it was a great show. So
Yes.
and I'm gonna have to go order some more books now. God, I said when I went to college I was gonna stop reading. So I would never read another book again after I got out of college. I'm a failure at
There's
that.
too many good ones.
Well, I mean, like we were talking earlier, since we interview so many authors, now I'm at a backlog. So
Yep.
it's another vacation, right?
There you go.
All right, everybody. Oh, and starting next week, I will be back on the air at Thin Line Rock Station Tuesdays and Thursdays, noon till 2. That's 12 to 1400 for you other people on the East Coast. Playing some rock and roll. Give me some requests on the radio. Everybody, have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.